Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. In today's video, we are going to take a close look at a Ferrari racing wheel. And this thing was not very expensive to begin with. But let's do the unboxing together, because that's something I love to do here on the channel. I'm always struggling getting these freaking boxes open. But let's check it out. So the first thing we'll see over here, that is way how you need to assemble and connect this. Okay, that's a nice detail. So having the clamp design or the design itself with a piece of plastic, and we've seen it before with all the other Thrustmaster wheels, so that is nothing really fancy. Over here we're having the manual, and this actually says for the Xbox One, but we can also use it in the Series one, and yeah, all the other one. So it does have a very nice weight to it. Let's do a quick sleeving. So they mentioned on the box already that this thing comes in combination with rubber. So this is not the fancy stuff that we've seen before, but Jesus, get the freaking plastic off with it. Oh. But yeah, the first thing is, this is some old school stuff with a spring. We're back to basic. We're back to like where we started with these racing wheels and the pedals itself. So let's take a close look at this. The pedals are just the typical pedals that we have seen before with the Thrustmaster racing wheels. But let's do a quick overview what we're getting inside the box. So when it comes to the racing wheel and the stuff that we're getting, it's not a lot, because we don't have force feedback and we don't have a power supply. So connecting this is going to be quite easy. Then of course the same bracket like I've mentioned before when it comes to all Thrustmaster racing wheels. The Thrustmaster Ferrari racing wheel looks kind of cool, but it's a lot of plastic fantastic, that's one thing to be sure. Connection wise, we do have some different buttons, for example having the engine start. That's kind of cool if you're going to be configuring this with a certain game. So over here having the XABY, but when you're looking at all the other functionalities, so over here we're having all the ones that we're needing like start and etc. And even have an extra, let's say tiny switch for like putting it in different modes, but it's only configurable with a couple of games. They were not lying, because this thing comes with some very nice metal pedals at the side, and also comes with a very nice, let's say, click to it. So when this thing is a little bit of a cheap feel overall configuration, it does indeed have some very nice pedals to give like the overall best racing experience when using the shifters. The racing wheels are just mostly of the time with Thrustmaster a combination of plastic and rubber, and this is no different scenario. So when you're looking at some premium like the Logitech or maybe some Thrustmaster like the really expensive ones, some of them maybe have leather, but this is just a really cheap, let's say, overall configuration. And the wheel itself feels kind of comfortable, does have like a very nice grip to it. Because there is no force feedback motor, this thing doesn't weigh a lot. It does have like the old school spring that we have seen with old school racing wheels. At the back of finding the connection, this is just a general connection for, let's say, the pedals. And you can maybe also use different ones with Thrustmaster. And then having the brake cable, because this is the PC Xbox version. And that's the only thing that we're getting. But let's take a close look at the pedals, because those are... They are just basic pedals that we have seen with different, let's say, Thrustmaster products, but they're not particular, let's say, super basic. Let's do a quick chat about those. So the springs are quite different from each pedal. You can see that we're having a brake and an acceleration, both have a different resistance, resulting in a very nice, let's say, brake resistance and acceleration. Both will have a rubber pad underneath, and that is very great, because if you're going to be putting this thing all the way down, you don't have like the plastic sound. And what I understand of, and I think you can maybe even to tinker with these things, like screw them loose and like switch them around and do them in a different configuration that we have seen with different pedals. But beside that, there is not a lot of grip at the bottom. We're finding a lot of, let's say, rubber, not actual grip if you have any carpet. So that's something you need to take consideration. Also notice that the connection they are using, it's the same with telephone cable you have seen before with other racing pedals of Thrustmaster. I do have myself a very thin disc. Trying to tighten up the screw, I don't want to put too much force on it. It's on the maximum, let's say, force, but still have like this wiggle going around. So with a very thin disc, this can be an issue. Alright, so racing with this wheel is so weird. And the reason is simply because we have no force feedback. I'm so used to it that I can barely drive now. Like I mentioned before, this is going back to the basics, but I don't like going back to the basic with this wheel. It's very comfortable, I must say that. It's responsive, but because we don't have any force feedback, we need to figure out how responsive or how I need to steer in and how the wheel itself will react. But I can tell you, this is for me driving all over again, starting it over again, because this is so weird. But responsive it is. Very sensitive. So one of the games I really needed to get used to when it comes to the force feedback with all the racing wheels I've reviewed is Formula 1. Because it had like an aggressive force feedback. But with this racing wheel we don't have that at all. The only thing we're having is the spring in the inside, the old school way. But it's kind of enjoyable because you don't have that crazy pressure from the force feedback. Of course you can always lower it, but when you're looking at this racing wheel, I just like this. It's very responsive, not over the top responsive. And if you don't like it, I would not be surprised you can even adjust that in the game itself. But if you just want to start off with a Formula 1 game, you just want to have a really cheap racing wheel, something that just actually responds very well, I think this Formula 1 of this Ferrari thing with Formula 1 is a very cool combination. You have some struggle with the pedals, but besides that the point. This is absolutely a lot of fun to playing it like this. You can just see how sensitive it is. So you need to be very careful and you need to get used to the situation. But how about if you're going to be getting into the Xbox 360 games backwards compatible? Let's go for some Hydra Thunder. One of my favorite games, so I'm not going to be needing this one. Nope. Okay, so the force feedback was kind of okay when I'm looking at auto racing wheels. So this is of course an old, very old game. So the compatibility is always going to be different, but it's always better than, let's say, the old school stuff with PC, a lot of shenanigans going on. And this just works out of the box. Okay, so let's see how it is and how does the game respond to this. There is almost no dead zone in this. I do wonder, there is the first person view. Woohoo! Oh man, that's really enjoyable. So cool. So for all the games, I'm surprised how well this thing works. I have no idea how to use the nitro. I can use the metal shift at the right. But this is really enjoyable, yeah. Hey, didn't even know I could jump. That's a new one. Whee! Whee! The racing wheel feels kind of cheap, but it does have a very comfortable feel. And the rubber grip is quite nice. I don't know how long that will be normal, because sometimes after the years it can get sticky. Don't know if there's going to be a problem with this. So what is interesting also when it comes to the layout, I really need to get used to it, because at the first you're searching your button, because the A, B, X, Y and everything, some of them are not really clear. So for example, the engine start is just your D-pad, so that's kind of cool. So when you're looking at it, I didn't even utilize every feature on the racing wheel, but I do like the way how it looks and how it plays. Thank you all for watching, consider subscribing, hit that little bell, and it would be great to see you in the next video.